last role as VP of sales in a smaller company, a mid-market company, you wear a lot of hats, so I had a lot of involvement in our supply chain. One of the things that I looked at was the fact that with the economy the way it is today, there's a risk a huge risk that if you don't provide the level of service that customers are looking for, you're going to be out the door. But by the same token, it's becoming harder and harder to do that because of the economical parameters that are put on all the supply chain providers. Basically, you're being asked to do more with less, and you're being asked to do more, and many times a compressed lead time or cycle time. Especially, I think, forecasting becomes even more important than ever, and that's one of the things that in the company that I was with previously, Eastman Outdoors, where I was VP of sales, that's one of the things that we tried to really hone in on in our supply chain to try to take costs out of the system. Major retailers that we were dealing with were basically delaying their orders and delaying purchase orders, and really put a company like Eastman in a crunch, which was Eastman's a seasonal sporting goods manufacturer and importer. So basically, if you miss your season, you don't make that business up. So forecasting is extremely important to begin with, but it becomes even more important when you're a smaller company and you don't have a purchase order to start production off of. It can really put you in a bind if some of your major customers, which comprise maybe 30–40% of your business, don't give you your orders until late. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't supply those orders, and you lose the business. One of the things that we did at Eastman is we started to look at all of our products and wherever there were like components, because fortunately for what we did, there were a lot of similar components. They went into several different SKUs, but they were basically the same part. So what we did, anticipating that, hey, look, we know from our forecasting that on average, our accuracy was, about 80% correct. So let's be conservative, and we'll start making 50% of what we think our forecast is going to be in terms of components. In that way, we're able to kind of stave off the need for having the purchase order in hand to start making this product, and at the same time, when we did finally get the orders from the major retailers, we were in good shape because we were already that far down the road of having components already made, and it mitigated some of the risk of going ahead and making your full forecast, and then on the outside chance you don't get the orders that you think you're going to get, you're stuck with a lot of inventory. I think that was, that may be relevant to what you're trying to do, and post some information out there of what other manufacturers are doing to try to mitigate their risk. And it was something that for a small company like us was extremely important to do, to take a look at, hey, how can we still meet these large orders, but at the same time not extend ourselves out so far that if we don't, if we don't get the orders, we're sunk because we have nowhere to sell the inventory. So, I think one of the things I may or may not have mentioned to you in terms in my note was the need for an integrated supply chain, and that truly, when you've got sales working hand in hand with operations, working hand in hand with marketing, working hand in hand with production or manufacturing. I come from a background where at some major Fortune 500 companies, sales had a forecast, but on the other side, it seemed like manufacturing and operations had their own forecasts, and sometimes the two didn't always line up. When you work for a smaller company like Eastman, you don't really have that luxury. Your forecast has to be your forecast, and it has to be accurate. So it really forced sales to work really well with operations and manufacturing, because at the end of the day, we were all in the same boat. especially with it being a seasonal business, like I mentioned before. It's not like being in foods where, yeah, if you miss the forecast, you miss the forecast. There's still going to be an opportunity to recoup that demand. Versus a seasonal business like the hunting business, the season is the fall, and if you miss those fall orders, you miss the season, and you don't make it up until the next year.
I think one of the other things that may be useful to you, that one of the innovative
things that we tried to do, especially again, I'll reference the economy. We had some of our major customers that started to experience financial difficulties. They represented, in this case, it was a retailer that represented over 25% of our overall business. So the reason we found that out is we couldn't get insurance on our receivables for this account. And so, what that means for a small company like Eastman is you're hung out to dry for those receivables. If that major retailer goes under, you're left holding the bag for a lot of inventory, which could sink a smaller company like that. So, you're faced with the dilemma of, okay, how do I approach this major customer that, they know they're a major customer, they represent, over 25% of our business, and say, hey, look, we're a little concerned here, you don't want to cut them off. You don't want to upset them, but at the same time, you need to come up with a way that's going to, allow you to still service them, but at the same time, protect yourself from too much exposure in terms of accounts receivables. So, since we couldn't get receivable insurance on this customer, we didn't want to lose them as a customer. What we did is we came to them, and they knew, the industry knew, and they knew that that they were, in trouble. We came to them with an opportunity of providing them with a percentage off of their invoice or payment within 30 days. So in a way, we kind of created our own receivable insurance, if you will, because it was kind of a win-win. When you look at the retailer got an extra couple points out of it. They were happy about it, and the manufacturer got the security of knowing that, hey, they were only extended 30 days, so that at any given time, their risk, if this retailer went under, was only 30 days worth of supply. So it was a short-term deal, but in the end, I think it really it saved a relationship and ended up working out well for both sides. Both the